You are on the Brugger Films channel, and today we will explore the story of the RMS Lusitania, one of the most iconic ocean liners of its time, which suffered a tragic and cowardly sinking, killing over 1,000 people. We'll dive into the theories and mysteries surrounding this maritime colossus, and search for answers to understand why a German submarine decided to sink a passenger liner full of civilians. But first, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It costs nothing and it helps us continue creating amazing videos for you. Let's go! The RMS Lusitania was more than just an ocean liner. It symbolized the golden age of sea travel in the early 20th century. Launched in 1907, this majestic British ship not only crossed the Atlantic carrying elite passengers, but also transported a highly controversial cargo. The Lusitania was commissioned by the Cunard Line in 1904 and launched on June 7, 1906. It would later become one of the main competitors of the Titanic, which debuted 5 years later in 1912. At its peak, the Lusitania stood out in history. In 1907, it completed the Atlantic crossing in approximately 4 days and 19 hours, earning the Blue Riband, an award given to the ship with the fastest crossing. The Lusitania was built using the most sophisticated engineering techniques of its time. To ensure the ship's safety, it featured a double hull. The hull was constructed with 2 layers of metal and a space between them that acted as an extra layer of protection. The idea was that if the outer hull were punctured, seawater would enter this intermediate space, preventing the inner compartment from being directly compromised, potentially delaying or preventing sinking. Modern ships of the time often incorporated safety measures. The Titanic, for example, had watertight compartments and emergency bulkheads that kept the ship afloat for an incredible 2 hours and 40 minutes after colliding with the iceberg. Compared to the Titanic, which was 269 meters long, the Lusitania was slightly smaller at 240 meters but faster, reaching 25 knots, 46 kilometers per hour, versus the Titanic's 23 knots, 42 kilometers per hour. But why did the Lusitania meet such a tragic and controversial end? On the morning of May 7, 1915, carrying children and adults of all ages, the Lusitania, already known worldwide as a passenger ship, was sailing close to the south coast of Ireland, heading towards Liverpool carrying a somewhat suspicious cargo. Around noon, the German submarine U-20 spotted the Lusitania off the Irish coast. The German submarine captain decided to launch an attack, fully aware that the ship carried hundreds of civilians. At 2:10 p.m., the submarine launched a single torpedo that struck the starboard side of the Lusitania, below the waterline. A massive explosion shook the entire ship, and mysteriously, a second explosion followed shortly after. The ship, designed with a double hull to withstand small attacks, sank quickly in just 18 minutes. But why didn't the German captain hesitate to sink a civilian ship carrying 1,959 people? Before we answer that question, have you already left your like and subscribe to the channel? It costs nothing and helps us promote our videos. Weeks before the voyage, the Germans had published warnings in major US newspapers about a naval blockade in the Atlantic, stating that British ships like the Lusitania could be sunk by German submarines if they violated the blockade. Mysteriously, however, the British government allowed the Lusitania to proceed with its voyage. Another major factor was the strong suspicion that the Lusitania was carrying illegal ammunition and weapons. This could explain the second explosion reported by survivors of the sinking. That second explosion caused the ship to sink so quickly that the lifeboats could not be fully deployed.
Although Barbara, the ship was officially an ocean liner, There is evidence that it was transporting war material, which violated international rules of war. Later investigations suggest that the Lusitania carried around 173 tons of weapons and ammunition, and this would have made the ship a legitimate target for the Germans. But how did the Germans know that the Lusitania was carrying military weapons? But how did the Germans know the Lusitania was carrying military supplies? The Germans had information about the Lusitania's cargo through a combination of surveillance and espionage. Another intriguing point is that the British government knew German intelligence had access to certain information, yet Captain William Turner of the Lusitania was still instructed to sail through dangerous waters and at reduced speed, which is quite suspicious. While Germany justified the sinking of the Lusitania because of its military cargo, the United States and its allies emphasized that the ship carried innocent civilians and should not have been attacked. All these facts have led to speculation that the RMS Lusitania might have been sacrificed intentionally to provoke an international outcry against Germany, potentially motivating the US to join the war. After all, of the 1,198 lives lost in the sinking, 128 were American. The sinking resulted in the deaths of 1,198 people, with only 761 survivors, rescued mainly by ships that arrived after the disaster. After the sinking of the Lusitania, the United States officially entered the war on April 6, 1917, 2 years after the disaster. The fate of the Lusitania is considered one of the most tragic and controversial events of World War I, shrouded in mystery and theories. A German commander decides to sink a civilian ship, fully aware of the lives on board, a cowardly and brutal act. But wasn't the Lusitania's captain equally culpable for embarking on the voyage, knowing the ship carried weapons and faced a German naval blockade? Or the British government, which authorized the voyage, putting everyone at risk and allowing the illegal transport of military supplies on a civilian ship? It seems to me that all these ingredients formed an ideal scenario for a great tragedy. But what do you think happened? Did the British government and allies condemn the RMS Lusitania and everyone on board on purpose, just to convince the United States to enter the war against Germany? The Brugger Films channel wants to hear your opinion, so comment below what you think about all of this. Well, my friends, thank you once again for watching this production. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and don't forget to share it with your friends. This way, you help us reach 100,000 subscribers. That's it, my friends. See you in the next production. Until later.